Welcome to Beyond Accidentals podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we're super excited for the month of April. We made an announcement a few months ago about having an assistant coaches month for the month of April. And, I put it out there, and we got about 25 coaches that reached out to us, write a letters of recommendation about assistant coaches in their program that they felt were very deserving. And it was eye-opening to see, how many coaches really listened to the show and how it's gotten out there, and, and really getting people to talk about how they've learned a lot from coaches that have come on here. So, it's super humbling to hear that, but it's even super humbling for me to be able to do this assistant coaches month. I did it for a long time. It's thankless. I mean, you do a lot of work behind the scenes and no one even has a clue. The head coach gets all the recognition. I mean, they get all the hate too, but they get all the recognition as well. And, assistant coaches grind and work hard. And I feel like it's really important to get them out there and bring them on the show and let people know, there are some good head coaching candidates out there in Massachusetts, in different sports across the region. So it'll be excited to get some assistant coaches on here and show what they have. And hopefully this show becomes a platform for some of these assistant coaches to get head coaching jobs in the future. So with that being said, I was really excited. The first coach who responded, I had 3 coaches respond to me. Now, what's really interesting about this is that all 3 coaches have worked with this coach at a different time and not necessarily currently right now, and immediately recommended this person. Now, I also know this person on a personal level. So it was like, it was really cool to kind of see that and to know someone that, people have these great feelings about out there. So, right now is a current assistant football coach at Malden Catholic High School. Previous to that was the head football coach at Mystic Valley High School, has coached at places like St. Clemens and Pope John in football, and even in the youth organizations in the city of Medford, which we'll talk about later on, just really involved in the football and baseball programs in that community and bring them to a lot of championships and state championships and New England tournaments. And, just really an unbelievable person, unbelievable coach, and someone who I think can teach a lot to people out there about, being a head coach at one point and also being a heck of a head coach and being a great assistant coach, and really can bring a lot of value to people who listen out there. So without further ado, now that I've given this kid a heck of an intro, ladies and gentlemen, from Malden Catholic High School, Danny Kelly.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for that introduction. I'm really excited to be on this. Being a former head coach and now getting, to enjoy being an assistant again, having some fun. I'm really looking forward to being on here and getting started to kick this off. And of course, being here with you is nothing but an honor for me, as someone that I've known for a very long time. So I'm excited. We're going to have a good time tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think was so great and so cool is just seeing what these coaches had to say about you. And we're going to read some of the quotes in a little bit of, things that these people thought of you and how high regard they thought of you. But knowing you personally, I mean, I think I substitute taught you when I was probably like in college. And then obviously you worked for me in the summer fun program, and you were great counsel. I mean, dominant dodgeball counselor. I think you had back-to-back championships, and
Little ass one.
little athletic too. And just a kid that, I know obviously a lot of kids in the community in Medford, that's where I teach. But there's always a few that just kind of stand out and stick out, and you've always been that. So it's really cool to have you on here and talk about all this. So it's super humbling to me.
Thank you. It's humbling. Good for all of us. It's fun.
Yeah. So just talk about getting into coaching a little bit. I mean, what really kind of was the fire that lit you as far as becoming, a coach, going from an athlete to a coach?
So it was actually my junior year. As we were going through that summer, I was a junior. I was about to start playing quarterback for Medford High. So it was an exciting thing. It was kind of my first year jumping in to play high school football that year as well. And I had a friend that lived down the street, and her mother was the cheerleading director for Medford Pop Warner, and I played Medford Pop Warner. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to come down and, get some community service hours. And I started helping out coaching on the F squad. And I thought that was really fun. We had a great time, 5- and 6-year-olds running around, fully dressed up in pads, and, just going back and forth and getting some real coaching in. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. One of my buddies ended up doing with me, just to get our community service hours in. And what's funny is the next year, Medford Pop Warner, I was supposed to be one of the head coaches for the A squad. And I was 18 years old, just graduated, just jumped into working. So, that was a huge thing, and I was excited for that. But Pop Warner didn't have enough kids at that time. So we ended up actually starting the Junior Mustangs Foundation and the organization there. And we ended up starting that organization with a small group of people, probably about 8 or 9 people. And again, I wasn't there for the initial starting meetings, but I was one of those first people that they reached out to, asking if I would help coach. And that's how I got started coaching the 7th and 8th grade team. And I was 18 years old. I think I just turned 19, about 20 days into practices. Really didn't know much about what it was like to coach football. Again, and I've watched so many of these episodes where you thought I knew everything. I went in there and I'm running, double stack eyes, spread formations. I'm like, this is no problem, and we struggled out the jump. But we had a lot of fun. And, it's been kind of funny because through these years now you see these kids get older and I'm not even that old, but I started so young that now my first team has been graduated from high school. I got to see them on the tail end of their vocational career, a lot of them, and at the high school. But, I really started at the depths of learning. And I thought that was huge because I got to, try out so much stuff at the youth level with some of those early teams. And, we had a lot of fun down there at those early levels. I worked with a lot of good people, guys that, probably aren't even, consider themselves football coaches, but I learned so much from them. Just in terms of, what it's like to be a young adult and responsibility, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, every night I had practice at 5:30, Monday through Friday, games on Sundays, kind of gave up a lot of free time to do that, picking kids up for practice, picking kids up for games. So, I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you just hit upon so many things that are just so important that I literally am going to ask you about. So I'm loving that, like, out the gate, you're saying this stuff because I'm just like, okay, awesome. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. But let's just talk about your resume. So you mentioned 18, 19 years old. I mean, you graduated high school. I graduated high school, like, I think like my parents still did my laundry. So to be running, a youth organization, a youth program, is incredible. So I'm just going to read a few stats off that I was able to look up. And a lot of people think, Danny Kelly, they think football, but I know baseball is a huge passion and love of yours too.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to read off the stats here again, just doing some digging and, talking to some people and so on and so forth. 19 years old, you were the football director of the Medford Junior Mustangs. And again, I'm just going to highlight a few other things about you, maybe away from youth, but you were the youngest head football coach in Massachusetts when you got hired. You were the youngest coach to also coach in the Shriners game. And to me, that stuff's pretty amazing. And then on the baseball side of things, and you had a lot of success in the Junior Mustangs program. You had teams that were undefeated, went to states, won tournaments, won championships. I mean, that resume is insane. But then I look at your baseball resume, and again, with the kids that are seen between the ages of 13, 15, that you work with in the city, you have 4 town league championships, 3 out of the 4 years you were in the Lou Tompkins All-Star game, you won the championship. You had 2 15-year-old Babe Ruth All-Star championships, and those teams moved on to the New England Regionals. An overall record, and again, I don't know if I did the right digging here, but 120 wins and 20 losses. I mean, that's pretty insane. And when I look at that, I mean, you're coaching those teams. You're not 18 and 19. I mean, you're kind of like, maybe 17, 18 at that point, like coaching baseball, maybe a little bit younger, but impressive numbers. I mean, what did you learn most? I mean, you're a young kid. Like, what did you learn about responsibility and time management and dealing with parents? Dealing with parents, right? Like, think about all those things at a young age. You got such a like education. And I mean, talk about that time of coaching in the youth levels and how it maybe prepared you just to become a high school coach.
So just talking about the baseball stuff, I've had the same coaching staff with me, Paul Williams, Chris Botari, and Steve Sweeney. I had them pretty much my whole time while I was there. Jerry Dorenzo helped me a lot too. So just some good local Medford guys that I just reached in and was like, do you guys want to help coach a baseball team? They're like, why not? Let's do it. And, we ended up actually, we did town league every spring. So it was, football in the fall, take the winter off, and then I'd go right into the spring to get baseball going. And I just happened to reach out to the Medford Babe Ruth director at that time, Dave Blackier, who's just an awesome guy, Kathy Decker-Manji, who are awesome, awesome people, who just said, if you want to coach a team, go ahead. And I don't think they thought I was going to take it to the level of extent that I did with, 2 or 3 times we practice a week. And we ended up winning the town championship in my first year. And I said, well, we got to come back. And that's when I had, more of those guys jump on my staff and actually, got in there. And then we ended up winning 3 more in a row. Well, we actually ended up finding this group because we were doing the Lou Tompkins All-Star Tournament. And we became really close with this one group of kids that was, at 13 years old. And we took them and we actually ended up making it to the finals with them right away. So that was really fun. We lost the first year and then we ended up doing it again. And we lost the second year to this team, Athletes Edge from Acton. They were really tough. They pulled from like 4 different cities. So, that next year, when they were 15, we ended up actually, really coming out with a talented group. I think we went 18-1 both years in the regular season. And this expands all the way from Dedham to Natick to Brookline, Melrose, Medford, Malden, Revere. So it was all
everywhere.
Yeah, there was about, and it was the 15, 16-year-old division. And, we were winning games big time and having a lot of fun. And Anthony, it's funny that you brought that up about the parents, because I know a lot of them are going to watch this. I had the best group of parents I've ever had. I never had one problem. They were the best. They were hosting nights after wins in the summertime at their houses, at their pools, hanging out. We were all just having a great time.
Winning cures all, man. Winning cures all.
It really does. And when this one group was 15, we did both tournaments at the same time. So we decided to jump in the All-Star tournament, not really knowing much about it, because you said, you know what, we're just going to throw a team in this Babe Ruth 15-year-old All-Star division and see what happens. So there was the same group that we played in the Lou Tompkins All-Star League with. And, we threw it in there, and we ended up winning, the district championship. And then we went on to states, and we went 6-0 in the states and only gave up 1 run. And somebody called me from the state level and was like, we were not expecting this type of run, because at that time, Lynn was the powerhouse, and we had some problems with them up in the New England regionals. They were a really tough team. That year, we ended up not making it to the Babe Ruth World Series by a tiebreaker. There was a 3-way tie for first. We beat the first place team, and Lynn beat us. But what happened was it was a run thing, so it went down by runs against, and Lynn had 2 less runs against than us. Because it was tough.
That's like Friday Night Lights when they have to flip the coin to see which team is in and which team is out, and the 3 coaches got to flip the coin. I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, and it was between us, Pittsfield, and Lynn, and all 3 of us coaches were sitting there. And you know what? It's one of those moments where we said, we'll play each other again in a little round robin tournament to see who goes, because we just had so much respect for each other at that time. And it was so much fun for the kids, even though it was only in Lynn. It was at the Manning Bowl down there. So it was Beautiful. At that park down there. Beautiful baseball field, awesome baseball field, beautiful football field down there. But then ended up being over there. And, we had teams from, Augusta, Maine, Waterford, Connecticut, all these teams that came down for the regionals, and getting to know those kids. They invited us out on the field for a Navigators game and introduced every kid. They gave them all the gear, the New England gear and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun that they got to represent Medford. So that was a lot of fun with that group. And then we ended up doing it 2 years later with a different group and went through the same run, ended up winning the Eastern Mass title. Their banner actually still hangs up in my vocational shop in my school. We got to bring the banner out at Fenway. So I had 2 different groups. Both were 15, and they were great. Both special groups. But the best thing was, and we always said, was the parents made it so enjoyable. They made it that much easier for us that there was tough decisions, as you can imagine, when, someone going deep in a game pitching, or, someone wasn't that hot hitting, or someone come in to pinch hit, or, just lay down a sacrifice bunt at the time. And, that just comes down to having, again, I had some of my best friends coaching baseball with me, Paul, Chris, Steve, these guys coached me for a long time. And, we knew what we were doing before, thinking about before any kid got up to bat. But the parents were a great support. It's funny, my parents still come to every game. And I know, they love to come out. So, when you make it a whole family atmosphere and a community like that, it makes it a lot more fun. And especially, like you said, when winning is going on, it does make it a lot easier to have.
And I love the last thing that you just said, especially with that family experience, because at the end of the day, that's like what I think any coach has in an ideal situation of what they would want their program to be. It being a family oriented, community, alumni, having all of that involved and giving a game, not just a game that you're going to watch, but just an atmosphere and a feel when you go there. It's a social event for some people. It's a big game for other people. It's alumni reconnecting. I mean, when you can build a program like that, especially even at a youth level of, people understanding what you're building and what you're doing. And you did this all at a really young age. And I think that's what, really just, I always kind of go back to with is, you're mentioning all that stuff about travel and, having respect for each other. And, I'm sure that was a tough situation for your kids to, be in as far as, World Series for like the Babe Ruth level. I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible, right? But you able to kind of navigate those waters at a young age and, provide your team a learning experience as far as life goes, when everyone's kind of on the same level, it's like, okay, who wants it a little bit more? And not necessarily that was the case, but, that's kind of like a lesson you teach when these kids get older and go into the workforce and try to get jobs and, become, parents and making right decisions for their kids. Like, so, it's like a full circle type thing. A big reason, like I mentioned at the top of this broadcast, to get you on this show was some of the letters of recommendation that were sent to me. And like I mentioned, there were 3 letters of recommendation that were sent to me. And I'm just going to kind of read a small bit from each coach, and just, things that they kind of said about you. Again, I'll start with Rich Ioza, again, who worked with you at the junior Mustang level. Danny's knowledge about coaching football far surpasses his age. I have coached the game for many years, played college football, and has seen many bad and good coaches. Danny is one of the good ones. If you want a leader to reinvigorate your program, he is your person. It's pretty cool. Colin Walsh, who, current defensive line coach at Framingham, big successful coach at St. Clemens for a long time. The passion he had for the kids and for the love of the game was the first thing to stand out to me. He showed great enthusiasm and excellent ability to communicate with players, his coaches, and even parents. He was and still is always excited to sit down and talk football, which we continue to do on numerous occasions.
Yep.
And then, Bill Raycraft, who I have a lot of respect for, I think is doing some pretty good things over at MC and a real good guy. He reached out to me. And again, you're just working with him this year. As we look to rebuild the culture of football at Malden Catholic, it is understood one of the most important elements is having the right staff that buys into what we are doing and what we believe in our teaching, understanding, and expectation, and is able to translate that to motivation to the players. I mean, wow, dude. I mean, that's awesome. So I like, as an assistant coach, like this month of this show means more to me than anything because I get it. I really get it. And sometimes you go and people don't realize the work that you put in. And sometimes you question, is anyone ever going to see the work I put into it? These guys did. What does that mean to you when you hear, words like that from people that you obviously work with and have a big respect for yourself, to talk about you as, not just a coach, but as a man? I mean, as a man.
Oh, it's awesome. And, it's really cool to hear. It's funny sometimes you don't get down, sit down and reflect. As I was talking to some people today, is, some of the things that we've been able to do. And just Rich Ioza has been such a great friend, someone that I've really leaned on for connections and, someone that's, been a great person. I brought him on staff with me right away. And it wasn't a matter of fact of, what do you need me to do? It's like, how fast do you want me to do? And what do we need to do? That was awesome. He was one of my very first hires at Mystic Valley. I knew I was bringing him with me. We had such a great time with Junior Mustangs. And again, he's someone that, didn't need to bring me along, but he chose that time to do that. So that was awesome with Rich, and we still talk every day, all the time. We talk football for hours. Colin Walsh, such a good friend. See him all the time. Love to connect with him. Again, we sit and talk football for hours. But, I met him just, at some Junior Mustang practices. Him being a Medford guy, really successful person. He's someone, again, I looked up to real young and gave me my very first coaching opportunity. He said, we got to get you into the high school ranks now. And he was doing the same thing at St. Clemens, kind of that we had going on at MC now, really, buying into the kids. Sometimes they think private schools are just bringing kids in for wins, but you're really bringing these kids around such a loving and community environment. And that's something that I saw right away that I loved at St. Clemens. And it was a small school. I think there was 25 kids in the 10th grade class at a time, in some of those final years. But those coaches there between Colin Walsh, Craig Connors, George Murray, those guys there at St. Clemens, I learned a lot from right away. I really got to jump into it. I got to be on the headsets with Colin as an offensive coordinator. He was calling the plays. So I was, just giving him suggestions in the booth with the headset on. And I was so excited to even throw a headset on for the first time because in Junior Mustangs, you just are on the field and there's no headset. So I'm like, wow, this feels so real. 19 years old, 20 years old, getting into this and getting to throw the headset on and make suggestions. We learned a lot together. And then Bill, Bill has been great to me. With as soon as COVID happened, and I didn't really have anywhere to coach right then. Bill reached out and said if I was interested that I had a spot, and I knew that they had a big staff. Brian McDonough is a real close friend of mine. He coached with me at Mystic, so he's the linebackers coach at Malden County. He said, we got to get you over here. So he was a huge influence to help me get over here. Talked about exactly what they got going on, and then I just got to meet a lot of the guys, Sean Terrio, Jeff Smith, some of these guys that have been head coaches and defensive coordinators at these major colleges, and really been able to soak up a lot of information from them. But I can't say enough good things about all three of those guys. They are just such great people. That's number one. People that like you said, as assistant, you don't know when the work's getting deserved and when you see it, but you don't mind that because those are such great people. That those are the people you'll stand behind and you'll work those extra hours when no one might know. But those are the people that lead the way from the front, and I appreciate it. Everything, give me opportunities, so I wouldn't be anywhere the man I am today without all three of them.
Yeah, and I think, it's important when you were just saying small things like being on the headphones and listening to somebody else or listening to guys
Yeah.
who've had head coaching experiences or coached at the college level. I think that that's what's so important about being assistant coach. If someone asked me what was the number one thing about being an assistant coach, was I listened. I listened to what people had to say, whether it was positive towards what I was doing or negative towards what I was doing. But I listened, and I think any assistant coach who goes in and just thinks they get it and they know it. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. You don't know as much as you think you know. And if you kind of go in with that mentality, I mean, the longer you're an assistant coach, I mean, the more you're learning in theory. And, my wife jokes with me and says, I have selective hearing, which I kind of do. I mean, I 50% agree with it. But when it's someone's talking football and I'm like, wait, how would you block my 1-and-3 technique? Yeah, nothing else around me is happening, even though it
Yeah.
is, because I'm really interested in what I'm talking about. And, when you can find a bunch of other people that love doing that too, and it's a passion, it's one of the funnest things in the world to do. Being an assistant coach, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, being a head coach is a lot more responsibility, but being an assistant coach and being one of the guys and really, building and working with the program, it's cool. It's cool. So a big thing that you kind of were a free agent when a few of these schools that were closing. And, when I took the job at Arlington Catholic, I tried getting you on board. But at the 11th hour, I mean, your first head coaching experience, the Mystic Valley Charter School job opened up. And earlier this year, we had on Craig Turner, who's the head football coach at Wilmington now, who was, one of the previous ones, not the one, right before you, but before that.
Yep.
And so, so I'm very familiar with the school and the area and so on, but that job opened up and you're pretty young. I mean, I mentioned you're the youngest head football coach when you were the head football coach there in the state of Massachusetts. So that says something about you and what the school thought of you. I mean, for the young people out there listening, talk about the experience of going for your first interview at the high school level, the types of questions you got asked, and what you think maybe won them over about you a little bit.
Yeah. So again, I remember it opened up on School Spring in June, and Paul Williams came to me and said, "You know what?" He's like, "Why don't you throw your name in the hat for it and see what happens?" He's like, "Why not? You got nothing to lose right now." And we were on the fence about where I was going to do, and I was talking to you a lot, and I was just finishing up with Pope John, seeing what they were going to do because again, a good friend of mine was still coaching there. So I said, "All right, I'm going to throw my name in the hat." And over the summer months, we started connecting back and forth, and we started reaching out to each other. And I actually came in for my first interview, and I remember it was a nice hot summer day, and I got this suit on, and I'm walking in, and we actually had about a 30-minute interview, and I just met the athletic director at that time, which was John Furlong, who was an awesome person, great guy, Malden legend, pretty much, great, awesome dude. And we really only sat down for about 30 minutes. We went through my resume. I brought in, and I thought something was huge, is I brought in a very extensive binder about fundraising plans, my offensive philosophy, defensive, special teams, practice plans, additional family ideas, how to get the team together, responsibility methods, and actually an 8-page Bible of what I would thought I was going to follow at the time. So at that time, he goes, "Okay, we're going to bring you back for a second interview." And I was like, "Okay, awesome." I was like, "Yeah, let me know when." So about 2 weeks passed by and I didn't really hear much. And I was like, all right, I'm really eager at this point. And, I'm talking to some of my guys who were an assistant for me with us at Pope John and, Rich at the Junior Mustangs. And I was talking to Colin a little bit more. And I was like, hey guys, we might get something here. Just be ready if something ever breaks out. It's going to be quick. This is around July 25th. So as you know, most teams are, almost they've done spring league, they've done fall league, they've done, a whole year of lifting and everything like that. And again, I didn't know anything really about the school besides some Medford friends that I knew before then. So, I really didn't know much about them going into it. So, I don't know any of the kids or anything like that or how the team's even going to be. I just said, you know what? I know I'm going to bring excitement to this program and try. So in the second interview, we sat down with the superintendent, both superintendents and the athletic director. And it was a very extensive hour-and-a-half interview, but it was just about how, are you going to maintain the integrity of the school, the responsibility to the kids and all that type of stuff. And again, I went in really well prepared. I thought, I prepared myself well. I asked a lot of people a lot of questions about what goes on a football interview. And I just thought, really prepare myself and showing them that, we're going to care and that we're not just going to coach from September or August to November. I'm going to make this a whole year thing, and I'm going to make a football culture here. That was my biggest thing is I wasn't sure about the culture going in. I heard again that Craig did a great job there a couple years before and that, he was working and, he had some great teams there. And then Demo had another good team just coming off a good team there. So I said, I want to make this so it's a full year program. I want our coaches to be involved in the school. I want everything to be involved. And I thought that was a big thing. And I always thought that meant a lot to me when I was coaching with the Junior Mustangs, and Jay Nascimento used to come down when he was head coach, and you could just see the kids light up. So I said, that's something that I'm really going to make sure that we invest in, going forward in the school. And, I found out almost the next day that I got the job. I was at a men's softball league game. It was about 8 o'clock at night. John Furlong called me, and he said, call your staff. You guys start tomorrow. It was actually – I think that I interviewed July 27th. I got hired on August 1st. So it was like kind of funny because that's the same day that youth football starts. So it was no different for me than preparing a team quickly for 3 weeks, before a first game, because that's usually how it was. So, assembling a staff. The next day we go in and meet the kids. We get, I was getting texts from the captain that was previously captains. And I got very lucky that, we had 4 great captains at that time already assigned. And again, you don't know going into the school. And I know you went in after, same thing mid-year. And, that I got very lucky, that I had really good captains to start off with. They were getting everybody there and we took off running, and we just tried to get started the best we can. But I mean, literally, I'm like running routes with kids to see who can catch the football, who can do what. So, that was the thing that, I was trying to figure out, and we were trying to figure out quickly. We were there for hours and hours every night, but it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true. I was 23 years old. I was named the head coach, and I was like, they were like, go out, take it off running. I was so excited. I loved every minute of it. And I was so grateful just for that opportunity that, I was staying up all night working and watching film and all that type of stuff, because I was like, dreaming of that day. And I never thought it was going to come that quick. And whether I thought I was ready or not, I just said, you know what, we're going to do this. And I'm going to try to prove anybody wrong that thinks we're not. And we're going to say we're going to have fun and we're going to have a blast and make this an experience for the kids that when they look back and think about this, and I still talk to all those players a lot, that, they don't regret a minute of it and they wish they were still there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, it's awesome to hear you say all that and just the excitement. I mean, obviously the nerves that kick in with that too, I'm sure of, really, like you said, not really knowing your team. I think when you become a head coach and you don't know your team and you haven't coached them, it's tough. I mean, it's tough because you're evaluating film. We all know that seeing them in person is different than seeing them on film because speed doesn't lie in person. And sometimes it can be deceiving on film. So you really getting to know your team and as quickly as you did. I mean, obviously from a football standpoint, the education's there, you understand what you want your program to become, but talk about being a head coach and dealing with the other aspect of it your first
Yep.
year, like you mentioned, the fundraising stuff, or maybe dealing with, parents. Obviously you're coming in, you're changing things. Some kids might've been a starter the year before and now maybe they're not starting, so,
Yep.
I mean, talk about type of education that I guess you got on the other side of it of really running a high school program that for all intents and purposes is year round.
Yeah, absolutely. It's year round, so again, we had to get it off and running just day one. Obviously we didn't have any time to waste. So it was, a lot of late nights in the conference rooms talking about depth charts, practice plans, schemes. We had to learn about every team in the league pretty much. I had to go in and learn about every team in that league I'd never seen them play, so we were really going in blind. So there is so much that goes into it that people don't see that, you're meeting on Sunday nights with your staff to talk about, what are we preparing for the next week? What do we need to work on in practice? We had a really strict practice time of 2 hours. We had the late time slot too. We had 6 to 8 at night every day. So we had a lot of long days, people coming from work, kids coming from the grind of school. And that was something that we made a decision as a coaching staff that, they got out of school at 3:15. We wanted to let them have a little bit of time to unwind. We wanted them to be able to keep up with their academics, offer some support, offer some weightlifting, and then keep 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock open for meetings with the coaches. Because, my big thing with our coaches, and again, I had a great staff at Mystic. Those guys are awesome people. My defensive coordinator, Steve Moran, had no coach.
Talk about them, dude, because I was going to ask you about them. So just segue right into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. My defensive coordinator, Steve Moran, was phenomenal. Great coach. Again, didn't really have much coaching experience. Was with me for 1 year at Pope John. I said, "You're going to be the defensive coordinator." He said, "Okay." And, he just went to work, and I just found young guys that were grinders. Paul Williams was the assistant to the head coach at the time, and Paul is just a game manager. He knows everything about the game and talking about situations. There was never a situation that we weren't prepared for or when we needed to use a timeout. So that was huge.
He's your Ernie Adams, dude. He's your Ernie Adams. That's who he is, right?
Exactly who he was. Rich came over with us, jumped on the offensive staff with me. He did some play calling for us and really helped develop some of our offense that first year a little bit. And, we went through some struggles a lot. But, we had a great quarterback, and he did a great job. Jonah Crane was phenomenal, got us out of a lot of tough situations. And then, there was a few guys that were already there. Mike Bessler, who just became, one of my great, great friends. His family is awesome. Andrea was pretty much one of the head of the boosters. So she was doing the concession stands for the games, taking care of the kids. Their daughter, Anastasia Bessler, played for us. And, she was one of our captains, first girl to ever be named a CAC All-Star. So, she was phenomenal. Such a great person to be around, always positive. But, in the trenches, she was an animal. She worked hard. She would take on, 300-pound defensive tackles and not say, "Coach, I can't block this kid." She'd come over to us and say, "I'm going to figure out a way to make this work. But, can we do this?" Having a coach on the field. Again, I had Brian McDonough with us. That was awesome. Our head of equipment manager, something that a lot of people don't understand is such a big thing. Equipment, IT, videoing practices, games every day was Roger Almus. Having him with us was huge because you don't understand that how much you can film off practice and, review that practice plan from the whole session almost between individuals with breaking down tackling technique, because I felt like we needed to up that up. And then, just seeing how your line was blocking, are they getting the scheme is what we're saying, like transitioning to on the field, so that was something that was huge for us. Again, the staff is what made it so awesome. But again, that was so much that went into the program. I mean, now, yeah, you're talking, pregame, what is our time set up? 15 minutes at each station, practice days. Are we going to go offense, defense both days? Are we going to do it one day? How are we going to fit in punt block? How are we going to fit in hand steam? There's so much in a 2-hour time frame that you are just jumping around nonstop. And that was something that, to me, I learned so much about on the fly was, practice planning. And I thought if I could have used help in any real aspect of it, because the schemes were going to come, and I brought in good people. With my year 2 staff, I brought in Brad McLean, who played, quarterback at Cushing Academy and, ran the Florida Gators system there. And John Ferrara, who was an offensive line coach at Medford High, guys that really understood scheme stuff that helped me, finalize our scheme that we wanted to run. Was the practice plan and game management stuff that, sometimes you can't see it unless you go to someone else's practice. Like, sometimes they do it like this. They break up, their individuals, their team, their group, some of that stuff I really learned on the fly. And then again, just trying to get parents to be involved. We started a tradition that every year on Thanksgiving Eve, we did a dinner for the kids. My buddy Steve Moran was awesome with that. He had donations from everywhere. The kids never paid a dime. They never paid a dime before any game. The parents always made pasta. Jen Crane, Andrea Bessler, awesome people that really took us under their wing and really helped us out. But then Steve, really was our fundraising guru. It's a funny story. We got into the turkey toss, and Mystic didn't do the turkey toss for a couple of years, so we were trying to get in there, and they were already filled up all the time slots. I think he called about 18 times to get us on there. And then when my other coach called, they said, "You're not Steve Moran, are you? Because we've heard enough from that guy all day." But that was just a dedication these people had just to make an experience for the kids, because Thanksgiving was so cool. We did a flag football tournament that week against the kids, coaches versus the kids. We did a staff flag football tournament.
And
all those types of things.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, you mentioned earlier in the podcast about that family feel when you coach at like the young level. I mean, you got to give yourself a lot of credit there that, that seems to go wherever you go. So you have a big part to do with that. And you can tell that means a lot to you. I mean, it's funny you talk about the turkey toss too, like being involved in that's awesome. I mean, when you first think about like one of the first turkey tosses out there, I mean, it was really like, no one really knew about it. It wasn't a big event. Now every year, I mean, obviously minus COVID, I mean, you're talking high schools from all over the state. They're taking buses in, like your police details. I mean, you get big time people coming on the radio. I mean, Manny in the morning, I mean, they do a great job with it. Mike Lynch, those guys. I mean, it's an event, and it's an event I look forward to driving to work every year, being like, I want to really listen to this, and it's laughable. It's so funny. But that's the type of atmosphere that you want to build in your program and want your kids to be involved in that, because that also adds to the school's culture, and the administration loves that, because now the school is, everyone's together, everyone's bonding. The football team brings that together, and I've heard a lot of great people say, sometimes your school year goes as the football season goes when you start off the school year. If your football team starts off great and does a great job, the school year seems to be smooth, and when not, it's the other way around a little bit. So, atmosphere and culture is everything in the sports world, especially at football, because it really does. It affects the entire school as well, and it can be such a great tool. So you mentioned year 1 to year 2. So I'm just going to read off some stats here. And again, just kind of maybe ask you what you think was the biggest difference from year 1 to year 2. But 2018, your first year, 2-9, you were 2-9, 98 points for, 364 points again. So a differential 266. Year 2, 2019. So you improved to 5-6. So you win 3 more games. Points for 168. So you jump up significantly there. You jump up about 70 points, and points against 242. You jump down about, I'm trying to do it in my head really quick, 122 points. I mean, a differential of minus 77, but a huge improvement in the win column, a huge improvement overall on both sides of the football. I mean, like I said to you, what do you attest that to?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So absolutely. It was a awesome, change. Again, the biggest thing in year 1 was establishing that culture, because you can't do anything without culture. Whether you win or lose, culture's got to be there, because we knew we had to build. Luckily we had good seniors. We actually won our first game. I won my very first game ever coached, 19-0. So that was really like cool, but a weird thing that we were like, whoa, we're 1-0. Like, okay, we're 1-0. And the next game, I think we lost 56-0 to Lynn Tech. So, it was like, okay, now this is really, what it's like to play with the big boys. And we learned. And, I came real good friends with those guys in the league, Razi Chow, James Runner, great people. We became good friends with all them, So, we obviously finished kind of tough. We had a late win in the non-playoffs. So, we went a little while without winning. But the culture never changed. There was never kids, missing practice. There was never kids really complaining about playing time, the scheme. That really wasn't it. That was, the culture was there, and we were vibing as a team and as a staff and learning, and we saw us get better towards the end of the year. So we did see us start to get better. Now, year 2, we go right in and we say, all right, we're going to name our captains early. We had 3 good seniors, and we established that weight room culture. And it was something that they really weren't as accustomed to, that it was like we were tracking it and we had it on a whole 4-quarter system breakdown. Again, Steve Moran, great coach, and he really broke that down. That's when I went out and I found John Ferrara. I went out and I got Brad McLean. So we added 2 really strong coaches who I really trusted on my staff, guys that were just awesome people. And then our staff just really started to click. We were hanging out a lot together, doing all these, I would ask them to go to, 7-on-7 Northeast tournaments, and they would go do that. Up at Latitude, there was a high school division mass flag tournament, and Brad was coaching that up there for us. So we had kids driving to Peabody from Malden every Friday night for a 6 o'clock game. So that was just, the coaches just doing the right thing. We really just found our scheme that worked for us, to be honest. We weren't huge, and we didn't have, game-changer 4.2 speed athletes. We needed to find a scheme. Year 2, we went in trying to run the pistol wing tee. At Manchester, Essex, Jeff Hutton running against us, and he did such a great job. I was amazed by it, the way that it worked, because it's like a hybrid wing tee. It's really new and,
Right.
fun out of the gun. So we liked it. And we did well in the scrimmages. We scored, a good amount of points, and we didn't give up any points in the scrimmages besides our battle with Boston Malden. So we thought, we had a good system going in and everything like that. And we played Martha's Vineyard. We had a really close game with them. I got to coach against, the legend Don Herman from the Vineyard, and they came down to us, and we lost 20.
They came to you? That's a bummer.
Yeah. We were going there this year, so we were excited for that. But yeah, so, we ended up losing a close game, and we were like, okay, our system's working. It was okay, but we weren't really, just doing well in our scheme. We weren't doing as good as we thought we were going to do. So week 2 against the Neshoba Tech, actually our starting quarterback broke his collarbone. So we kind of, with tough break. What are we going to do? Now we got no quarterback. We didn't really have a second one that was, really feasible at that point. So funny thing is, I look at Rich, I go single wing. It's something that Rich knows very well. It's something that the kids knew in and out. It's something when we went into tough situations. It's an easy scheme. It's gap on down blocking. It's the guy that's inside of you, block him. Kick out the end, and then run through the hole. And you know what? If you can be there and have good technique, that we're going to see it. So in the second half, we actually ended up scoring 21 points out of the single wing. It just got our athletes loose. The offensive line got fired up. We lost 48-21, but the film in that second half, I showed to the guys, we were dogpiling people. You were watching the whole line collapse the other side of the line. And that Neshoba Tech team actually was very good. So as we kept getting better, we kept going, we just kept getting better every week. We were controlling the clock. I think against Brighton, we ran 51 plays on offense, and I think we had the ball for 32 minutes of the game out of 48. So
yeah, that's a lot, dude.
That.
And not even to mention, too, I mean, I had a guest on here earlier. He was a former head football coach at Eastern New Mexico University, Kelly Lee. And, one of the big things we talked about was time of possession. And, he was averaging anywhere between 33 minutes a game to 36 minutes a game, year after year. And, for people out there that don't realize it, the best way sometimes to stop a really good offense is just having a really good ball controlled offense yourself that can eat clock and really limit the amount of possessions a team can have. So when Danny's talking about that, I mean, that's huge. 32 minutes in a high school game it's hard. I mean, I used to go against Austin Prep, and Bill Maraday did it. And
you can't beat
a quarter plus, and you'd be like, oh my God, we haven't even gone on the field offensively yet.
Yeah, that was huge for us. I just think that's when we really just came into our zone. John and Mike really just got that offensive line. They just hit that sled all day. They down blocked on that sled. We had a funny theme saying that was, sled to the shed. We'd get in tough yardage situations, and that's what they did. It ended up making our running back rush for 898 yards and 12 touchdowns. He came in second to one of Kip Academy's running back, who was a CAC MVP, co-MVP. So, he did really well. And all of his touchdowns his junior, senior year came out of single wing. So it was like this old school offense that, was hard to simulate in practice for some teams. Unfortunately, it's just some guys we just, some teams we couldn't match up with out front if they were just bigger than us, great middle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just couldn't control it. But I'll tell you, some of those games in those Boston City games, we played Brighton, South Boston, and East Boston in the non-playoffs. And those kids were huge. They were tough, physical kids, and we were moving them around. We lost East Boston in double overtime and, scored 14 points in the second half. Questionable holding call before the half. Doesn't give us the go-ahead score. We get stopped at the 1, on a tough play. That makes a difference between us going 6 and 5. That ends up, making the difference there. And then on Thanksgiving, we were dominant. We had the ball the whole game. And that's when, it just became so simple. Every single play call was power, wedge. and the kids just knew it. They would look over and they would be giving me the muscle for power. Like they wanted
Yeah.
power. They're like, run power here. So
Yeah,
when they moved,
when
I
your
was like,
offensive line's the culture, when your O line's the culture,
nothing.
and that's, I mean, that your whole team, it becomes having that demeanor. I mean, your O line, I mean, let's be real. I mean, they can be the biggest leaders in your program. They can be the toughest kids in your program, and they can be the hardest workers in your program. So when you have that as your culture, I mean, that's infectious to the rest of your team. And to see, I mean, to really see the jump, I mean, especially in the offensive category, I mean, you scored, 70 more points, divide that by 10. I mean, you're on average scoring an extra touchdown a game. And that's the difference maybe between you winning some games and losing
Oh,
some.
absolutely.
So it speaks volumes to what you guys were really able to do, from year one to year two. So, I know obviously COVID just brought craziness and continues to in a lot of senses. So when you were at Mystic Valley, obviously Mystic Valley is one of the schools that seem to call pretty early as far as canceling sports for, a year. And for coaches, that's not ideal, because obviously you're out of a job and out of building what you want to do. And, you end up making the move over to Malden Catholic and, taking an assistant coaching job, but coaching under, I think quietly one of the better coaches in Massachusetts that if you haven't heard about him, you'll hear about him soon. And, and having a really good staff there. I mean, so talk about kind of taking,
Yep.
I guess you can say that step backwards, and I don't mean it like that, but,
Oh, absolutely.
talking about maybe seeing somebody else running a program, Division
Yep.
One, playing some tough teams and maybe what you're learning, just being there for the months that you've been there.
Yeah. So again, just COVID happened and it really, really struck into something that we had going good there. But, those people over there at Mystic Valley were just such awesome people. Again, I had such a great experience there. I couldn't be more grateful. The moments I look back are awesome. Times I got to really, spend with my dad on the sideline and the team embraced him and brought him on and stuff like that. And just, got to coach with some of my best friends. Just, COVID struck everybody's dreams down. It's, I got selected to coach in the Shriners game in a game that, didn't get to happen. It's like, everything was going so great. And for me, COVID happened, but, that wasn't the important thing at the time. It was everybody's safety. And I totally understood it. But, just me as a professional, I needed to move on to something to stay coaching. I always was upfront with my kids and told them, what would happen. And, it just didn't work out at the end there. And it's an unfortunate thing, but nothing but love and respect for that school for, how they treated me. And they gave me my opportunity. They gave me my dream job, so I'll always go back to that and understand that, that was amazing. So, when I was looking around in this offseason, again, we didn't know even if the season was going to happen. I was flirting around with a few different opportunities. I will say one thing, the Massachusetts high school football coaches, just in terms of all that, is so tight. I had so many people reach out to me to say, we'll take you on, Brian Pitbull at Bishop Feehan, going all the way out to Foxborough, Jimmy Rabbit at Kip, Razi Chow at Chelsea, James Runner at Lynn Tech, a lot of guys in the league that said, if you're open, I'll take you. I know Razi at Chelsea said, I'll take your whole staff if you guys want to come, so it was like, that was really cool to see. But me, just thinking about it, and I really got to talk to Brian McDonough, who was a good friend of mine and coaching at Mystic, and he was at MC. And I would go to their games, and, Mystic, we played at Malden Catholic. So I got to meet Bill, and, he was letting us use the locker rooms there and, taking care of us wherever we need. I saw him at, one of the events they hold at Gillette, and we actually ended up, talking a lot. And I was like, all right, this guy, is really awesome dude, really just right down the street from us. So, we had some connections on social media and everything like that too. So when I reached out to him and then we talked and we had a mutual agreement that, I thought that was the best idea for me. I said, you know what? I want to coach in Division I in the Catholic Conference and see this. I played MC in high school, and I just remember watching them run around like, it looks like a pro college team like out here, like these kids are huge and they have the names on the back of the jerseys and, all that stuff, which is funny. So when I had the chance to go over there, I said, what is better than that? I mean, the schedule, St. John's Prep, Catholic Memorial, Zavarian, St. John Shrewsbury, it's a gauntlet. I went, and no disrespect, obviously CAC is a phenomenal league, but you're going against kids now. We're looking at starting lineups of Boston College, Michigan, UConn, Syracuse, Sacred Hill, Sacred Heart, all these schools.
Wake
These
Forest, kids yeah, I mean.
Oh, my God. I had the BCI coach on, and their offensive line was no smaller than 6'2 plus. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So I said, this is going to be a great challenge. And I said, this is going to make me learn. And as soon as I got there, and just like you said, if you don't know about Bill Raycroft, man, you're going to learn because his scheme and the way that he runs this program is, you know, it's really coming around. These kids are really believing in it, and he is doing a phenomenal job. And we really do have, you know, just some great people. You know, Jeff Smith, who was the head coach there as the defensive coordinator, he's an amazing person. He really took me under his wing. You know, Bill said, I would love for you to do quarterbacks for me, because we actually ran, you know, a double wing type offense in high school, and I played quarterback in it. So if you play quarterback in the double wing, you really understand the footwork and the counter steps and, you know, kind of just some of the rollout package stuff. So it's pretty easy for me to, you know, understand the scheme. But, you know, I coached defensive backs before, but I never coached defensive backs like I have now. I'll tell you that. Between Jeff Smith and Sean Terrill, I mean, and then I know we met on Zoom once, you know, and got to talk about some defensive stuff because, again, I think you're one of the strongest defensive minds around. You know, so I was like, let me reach out to anybody that I can get some drills off of. And I know we Zoomed at nighttime and talked about some of that stuff. But, wow, between Jeff and Sean and Brian and even Coach Populous, who runs the D-line, those guys are elite. And, you know, I'm lucky enough just to stand on the same field with them, to be honest. You know, but I'm learning a lot as we go. I'm like, oh, I like that technique. You're right. And just like you said, taking criticism, you have to just take it because you know what? They're making you better. They're not trying to, you know, undertake the way that you do stuff. You know, Sean is, you know, the defensive coordinator at Framingham State, who is, you know, to me, the Division III Everett. You know, they run the Division III every year, conference championship, conference championship, conference championship. Yeah. So I'm like, Sean, please give me everything you got. You know, even Smitty, I said, please, this is the side of the ball that's not only going to make me better on offense because I'm an offensive guy, like love the offensive scheme of the game, but, you know, it helps me understand it more. And I've also, you know, I know Sean McVay, Josh McDaniels, they all started on defense. So, you know, it's kind of going back a little bit to the basics, and it's been huge. And I also always wondered, if I ever took over a job with 90-plus kids, how would you run a practice? Yeah. I said, where would you have everybody and this is going on and what goes on here? And the way that they organize a practice between Bill and Jeff and those guys, I said, this is amazing. You know, I'm learning a lot. You know, we almost blocked 4 punts on special teams against North Andover, and that made the difference in our game the other day. You know, and that's just little details that, you know, I even overlooked, you know, the way that they punt block. You know, sometimes you think of it, you know, the great teams don't take special teams off. They make it happen. Yeah. You know, so that's something that I've learned a lot about, just such the fine details about how they do things as understood to me why they're such great coaches, but not only that, but they're great people, you know, and that's why I think MC is really on the rise. I'm lucky enough to be a part of, you know, seeing it come up, but also, you know, seeing what we're going to do here is very exciting. And, you know, Bill's guys that he brought on from New Hampshire, great people, really educated, again, a winning staff up there. So, you know, they're just bringing that culture here, you know, so that's been too.
And it's great. And it's good to hear you say a lot of that stuff because, again, you know, sometimes you could fall into the trap too. It's like, oh, head coach, I know, blah, blah, blah. But when you go to different places and different staffs and play at different levels, it's a different ball game, man. And it's just from the kids that you coach to the organization, all the things that you mentioned, you know, and I saw that win that you guys had against North Andover. And I was like, wow, I mean, North Andover is a pretty strong program. And that's a huge win for you guys. So to see that, you know, that you guys are doing some pretty good things over there, and now to kind of hear it firsthand, you know, that all makes sense. You know, one last thing I want to ask you before we jump into our 2-minute drill is, you know, we talked a lot about how much you've coached. I mean, really right out the gate, 18, 19 years old. I mean, what's your advice to young coaches out there? You know, what's a couple things that you would say that you just feel as though is the best advice to give them that are getting started into whatever sport they're coaching, and how to attack it?
One of my biggest things, something I always believed in, is I don't jump into anything unless I can give my full heart to it. You know, that's my biggest advice is if you cannot give it all your time, don't do it. Because number one, you're cheating the kids, right? The kids this is an experience that they are going to remember forever. One of my kids in baseball, Jake Whistler, is now the JV coach for Medford High basketball. And one of my kids in my shop said to me, you know, we're going to have some fun at practice because my baseball coach always made practices fun. And I was just like starstruck at that, you know, that someone would say that, you know, about, you know, just the way that we had so much fun. So if you can't put your full heart into something, please don't do it. But also listen to the people around you. You know what I'm saying? I've been lucky enough to be blessed for a long, long time. And, you know, I've been, you know, really lucky even to have met you a long time ago, Anthony, for you to give me an opportunity to become, you know, my motivation to become a Medford teacher. You know, I'm a teacher in the district with you now, and someone that gave me my very first work experience, and someone that I can always go to with interview questions. I can't think about, how many times we talk on the phone for hours. We get lost on the phone for hours and schemes. And I used to call you before games, and we call each other before we played each other. Yeah, no problem. I'll give you your first win. All right. So, I consider that a thank you for, being such a good person to me. So, that was just something that was huge. And I wanted to give a chance to, thank you personally from the bottom of my heart that, you play a pivotal role in, where I've come as a coach and as a teacher and as a person as well. But, that's something that I can really say to people is find good people around you, surround yourself with good people. Something I tell all the kids, surround yourself with successful people and you'll become successful. You're a product of the people you surround yourself with. Find good people that want to win. Find good motivated people to be with, and you'll find yourself in the right situations. And again, I've been lucky enough to do that. I've been lucky enough to coach with some of my best friends, win a lot of games, and appreciate the grind as well. Losing comes with it. So sometimes you put in all this hard work, but, one of the best quotes I ever heard was, hard work guarantees you nothing, but without it, you have no chance. So some we live by, some, it's in my bio, some that I go by every day. So, that's something I could say is, it's okay to work hard and lose, and, you'll really appreciate the win. So.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I mean, everything that you mentioned, it has nothing to do with, this is how you coach and this is your scheme or anything like that. It's all about just kind of circling back to everything you've mentioned, that culture, that family atmosphere, that having a good time. And, when all of those things, like we joke, winning cures that all, right? But
yeah,
you have that surrounding you. I mean, winning, it becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot easier when it becomes a community thing. And yeah, thanks for my first win. I appreciate that too. But But listen, we're going to jump into our last segment, our 2-minute drill here. And again, you kind of know how it works. I know you're a big fan of the show. So rapid fire, 2 minutes, answer as many questions as you can. I myself get a booth review if I want to challenge something, and vice versa. I'll allow you to explain something further if you want to. So here we go. Let me get my timer set. And here we go. Biggest win in your career at any level at any time?
I thought the first one, 7th and 8th grade, very first one we ever won in 7th and 8th grade, took us 2 years to get it. That first one, people came up to me ripping the monkey off my back. I was so happy. It was my very first win coaching football. I thought that was my favorite win ever.
Awesome. Okay. Best lineman you've coached in your career. So I'm going to say in your career throughout, probably for a lot of these.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So best lineman, honestly, I thought was, Jonathan McNeil was a dude for us. He was a left tackle for us for 2 years, really going to be for 3. He was a violent down blocker in that single wing. If you were on the inside of him, you were feeling it.
Okay. Who's one coach that you go against or you've gone against and you just like, every time you got to go against them? And I mean that not as like you can't stand them. I mean that as like, they're tough to coach against.
Jimmy Rabbit, good friend of ours,
I'm throwing the flag on this one. I want to hear it. Because I know he wants to hear it.
It's funny because, Jimmy, as they were like a growing team like us, small charter school. My first year against senior night, we didn't play great. And it was a game that we expected to win. And we had senior night going on. We didn't. I was so aggravated by that scheme. And then, I was just so aggravated by him. And I was like, oh, man, I just want to beat them. And the next year, they all hit the weight room so hard. I saw that team. I said, oh, my goodness. So I knew they were just going to beat us up. And I said, they're just, fun, tough to coach against, and we like to work with them and do some stuff with him. So, that was like, oh, man, every week I know they're going to just play their regular scheme. They're not even going to adjust to what we're doing. They're staying in a 3-4 against a 7-man line, and you can't move those guys out of the way because they were so disciplined in what they were taught. So I thought Jimmy was, really good and tough to coach against.
Oh, he's going to love that. He's going to love that.
I should have plugged him.
All right, let me get the timer set back up, and here we go. I'm going to ask you a question. Tell me what you think. Week 1, 2021 season, the New England Patriots starting quarterback is who?
Cam Newton.
Okay, so you think this is it? They're not making any other moves?
I mean, I've watched the I Am Athlete podcast with Brandon Marshall. He's motivated. Give the guy some chances, see what he can do, let the weapons run. Brady's coming to Foxborough, so, we're going to give the guy a year, I think, and we'll really see what happens. I think he's got the talent to do it.
I think Newton statistically has a pretty good record against Brady. I feel like he's got more wins against Brady.
Yeah,
Brady
those Carolina showdowns when Gronk getting tackled by Luke Kuechly in the end zone. And,
yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna look that stat up after that. I'm very interested in what their head-to-head record is against each other.
In the system, that's like going to Harvard for 4 years. He's trying to play for the Patriots. Let Josh call for another year. I think it'll be big.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. All right. Let me get this back on. All right. Last question I'm going to ask you. Who is the best player you've ever coached, period, in either sport, baseball or football?
Oh, that's tough, man. Baseball and football. I probably got two.
I'll let you pick one for each if you want.
All right.
I'll let you pick one for each.
All right. Best football player I think I ever coached was Isaiah Blake. He was unbelievable 8th grade athlete for us. And I know you know who he was. He was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I think
very good.
40 touchdowns as an 8th grader. It was every minute he touched the ball on offense or defense, he was scoring. Great kid, hard worker, awesome person, great family, got along with his father great. So, he was just the best athlete that I ever seen play. And then baseball player, we had so many on those all-star teams. I'd probably say, Gino DeSimone was really good. Gino DeSimone hit a lot of, long shots.
I know Gino.
Yeah. Gino, Ryan Donahue, Jake Whistler, those three were our, Jack Fargo, 4 captains for us in baseball for 4 years. Those are the 4, just unbelievable. Could pitch, hit, and, pitch, hit, play the field, do everything, and lead the team. I mean, 4 years of the exact same team. Those 4 guys were our captains, third base, shortstop, 1, 2, 3, 4 hitters. So that was huge for us. Love those guys. Great families, great people.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. That is so awesome. All right, you survived the 2-minute drill. And Danny, how old are you?
I'm 26.
All right, so I know how old you are, but I want people to hear that. Like, I just had a real adult conversation here with someone who just gets it. Like, understands sports, understands kids, understands culture, understands atmosphere, understands families. Like, this is a great assistant coach that's out there. And I couldn't think of all the start off, like I mentioned at the top, of people that immediately wrote. I mean, in my inbox that day after posting it, I had already a response. So, people listen and they thought of you right away, past and present. So that speaks volumes about who you are. And, I couldn't think of a better guest to really start this off. And, for those ADs that are listening out there, man, you got something here. So just to be able to showcase that, it's been fun. It's been awesome. And I've really enjoyed my time with you today.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you, man. This podcast is awesome. Again, I've been a huge fan of it from day one. I've talked to you, I think, right before the podcast even started, and some of that stuff. It's amazing opportunity for coaches. Again, we talked about how, I love when the football guys are on, of course, but wow, I've learned some great things from just some great people. This is amazing. It's well done. It's professional. It's out every week. I was like, thank God it moved up to Wednesdays because I hated waiting all the way to Friday. I was like, I can't wait any longer. Let's get this thing out here. So, it's an awesome thing for you. And I know how much, you love coaching and being in the game, but I feel like you're right in there with it now. And you've probably learned so much from all these great people. And, again, for anyone that gets a chance to listen to this is amazing. And it's such a great time. And it's a fun that I've never really had to reflect since we've got all the way back. So it was a lot of fun. And thank you. I appreciate for having me on and getting the chance to talk about our experience together.
Yeah, I sit here some interviews and I'm like Smithers from Simpsons. I'm like listening to coaches because I geek out on it, So I always just love listening to any sport, building a program, and how awesome it is. And
awesome.
Yeah, man, and you're gonna be back, as a head coach before you know it, and you're learning a lot and continue to learn a lot and continue to listen. And continue to listen to this show, man, because that's cool to hear that you're such a big fan of it. And like I said, thanks for coming on today. So from Beyond X's and O's, I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, Danny Kelly. Guys, till next time, thank you.